this episode. Reservations were one, and
considering other backward classes.
yes, and Muslim personal laws was one, and also finally there was a brief mention about Hindu Code. So we are all looking forward to listening to your views on the theme of this episode, generally on this episode itself, and whether it really brought out the intensity of the discussions that took place. If you could help us gain a new perspective about these things, it will be very helpful.
Thank you. First of all, I don't come from a legal background. I'm going to talk as a person who comes from the community and why this episode matters to me. One, as a woman, because one of the important groups that they also discussed about is being a woman and their rights. It would be more of a personal response to the episode. I have a lot of questions to you so that you can help me to understand this. This entire docudrama is a very special one for me because I watched it at a very young age with my father. My father is Krishnamurthy, who was an auto driver. He's no more. But somebody who was really interested in watching films and who was inspired by Ambedkarite Periyar's ideas. I think I grew up listening to him talk about these things. Some of the anecdotes that I would like to share would connect to this episode and why this episode is important for me. Of course, as an auto driver, he has to go every day. Only then will he earn something to get back home. Sunday is also one day where he would go, come back. But he would return early because back then, this used to be telecasted in Rajya Sabha TV in the morning. So he would leave early and come back, and only two of us were interested in watching this because the format itself is not like the popular cinema format, right? So we would sit, he would see, this is how Ambedkar would have looked like, right? And that kind of a space is what probably made me understand my own roots and understand the language of rights. This episode, I feel, is very important for one particular reason, that is the language of rights and not language of request as such. Request is also a very kind one, but I don't think that is needed. So for me, that's the personal connect to Samvidhaan docudrama. Later, when I started working in the Department of English as a teacher, I used to take the episode on language, which I think will come later, much later. The discussion would revolve around language questions and do we need national language and all of that. I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy that as well. I said this has personal connects to me because I'm a first generation graduate. I chose teaching profession because teaching gives space to have these conversations, right? You people are on the ground doing a lot of things, but as a teacher, I feel my contribution is in terms of sensitizing my students, making them feel that they can stand for another person and stand for themselves. That's how my passion for literature, passion for becoming a teacher stems from. And later in life, I always used to feel, okay, Ambedkar was not just this. He was also a teacher. He had his own doubts when he was entering the classroom. He had his own challenges and strengths, resistance and whatnot. After doing my master's in English literature, so I did my master's from St. Joseph's College, which is now St. Joseph's University. I wanted to do my doctoral degree. This was in 2014 and I'm still 21 years old. If you see in the entire episode, they all talk very professionally, Dr. Ambedkar, Dr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so. Maybe for somebody who's had people, right, who've had education, this may not seem big, right? But for somebody who's still stepping that, for me, oh, doctor means such a big thing, right? Like you do something, you are proficient in something, you gain something, and then you become a doctor as such. But I'm still 21. And where do I do my PhD, right? Something that happens, though your family can support you in your education, is that subconsciously you think you have to contribute to your family. And being the eldest, I also felt the same. So what happened immediately after masters? Joined work, because some earning would help. All of this I will connect as to why it matters, because they are talking about reservation not for some poverty elevation program. That is not the case, right? When we are talking about affirmative action, there are many other elements, and as a person who's also benefited from the constitutional rights, I feel even after having that right, there are many other elements that stop us. As a 21-year-old, if I had started doing my PhD, hoping that with all the barriers and difficulties, I could have completed by 26, 27 and joined places where I would have preferred to join, right? But that did not happen because of the historical things that my forefathers, that my ancestors have gone through, which made it difficult. Number one, supporting the family. Number two, you really don't know where to apply, how to apply. Do you go take the application form and apply? Would it be possible? Okay, now it would mean another 3 years if we are going to do full-time PhD. Of course, you will not complete in 3 years. It is going to take about 4 to 5 years. And 5 years, one person's labor in a family would be of great help, especially when they come from a working class community. If my father or mother were able to sustain themselves without the support of another labor, right, maybe that opportunity could have happened. And this is where they are talking about the divide that we've had in our own country, right? Due to the caste-based oppression, due to though they use the term depressed classes, minorities, this is what they are referring to. I prefer using the word caste, right? Caste-based oppression, where your family will need you and your labor. Post that, when I was some 26, 27, the whole journey of applying to university started. And my cancelling the seats that I get is a long list. Not sharing this because it's something that I feel happy about, but also to see the kind of challenges that a person from the oppressed community and being a woman would face. Of course, I wanted to apply to the central universities because the fees is lesser, right? I applied to HCU, went to Hyderabad to write the examination. Now, taking into account the travel expense to Hyderabad matters a lot. When you were a student and your parent, it's not that they would stop you, but they'll have to do a little more to provide you that amount to travel, right? Go stay there. So I said, no, let me work, then save up, do this. So went to Hyderabad, the joy of just looking at that such a big university, right? Space matters. That is where space matters. Why is it important that Ambedkar went with all the difficulties to London School of Economics in Columbia? Space matters because you have access to library, you have access to have these conversations, right? I was really, really happy, wrote the exam, got my seat, but the stipend that you get, right, is not going to be sufficient for you to sustain. Of course, fees is very minimal, in few thousands, and hostel amount is very less. You can stay actually, you can sustain yourself. Any other student who would come from the privileges that one receives because of the historical oppression that has happened may still take it up because you don't have the responsibility or the subconscious responsibility of sustaining or helping your family out, right? So gave up that seat, which could easily have, like, I could have completed by now. Then comes the story of EFLU. This was pandemic time, I applied. This time, very funny thing is that I paid the fees knowing that I will actually not take it up. Because the stipend is 8,000 rupees per month. By that time, I was earning really well. In the standards of the Bangalore thing, it's not well, but it really helped me to sustain myself. I had my own space, I could have a comfortable life, a decent life, right? So now, going to IFLU would mean, again, letting go of 5 years or 6 years of experience that I have had in college working as a lecturer. Already cleared NET, already cleared KSET. So now I think twice to even quit the job, because the job market is also difficult. What is the guarantee that if you come back, you're going to get the job? And next 5 years, to live with 8,000 rupees is not going to work. The fees for IFLU for the course was only 4,900 rupees, which I could pay. I attended the first class just for the joy of being a student in a university that you wanted to see, right? Then came this whole circus of applied to NIT Trichy, got there, because they had part-time option. Part-time option, though, it is going to be really difficult for you to invest 8 hours of work. Teaching is not going to be an easy job, because you have to prepare for classes, mentor your students, and a lot of other things that come with it, right? However, I took it up because Trichy I can go back and come, and a job will be somehow be there, it's secure. But then discontinued after a year. A lot of personal reasons. We can have a conversation of the topic maybe later. I said, no, this is not going to be possible, because there were other reasons. Discontinued. And now I'm not going to university. This whole journey of, and to apply in between, tried for Sherman scholarship, wanted to, okay, let me do one more master's and then try to do PhD, but nothing came together, because it's a journey and it drains you every single time, because you have to do everything by yourself, because you don't have the community support systems, right? Facts, knowledge, information, all of this is privilege. If I knew back then, when I was 21, 22, that I can apply for some central university and there will be support systems which are constitutionally given to me, and at that time father was still not at a stage where health was a concern, you could have still taken that step, right? Why is it important for me as a woman and a person from the minority community to look at this episode very closely? As human beings, right? From legal point of view, yes, of course, it's the right, but also to see that the kind of pressure that is put on the communities from the margins. They were talking, right, in the docudrama, all of them are Hindus, and they are in one fold. No, actually, if we look at the anthropological study as well, even if it's controversial, if there are believers, feel free to have disagreements with me. Hindu as a religion, Hinduism is just an amalgamation of different caste groups. It, before becoming, within quotes, the institutionalized religion, it's just different caste groups. We put them together and we are saying that, you are one community. But no, we aren't. We are not one community. The conversation here is about providing support systems in terms of education and government jobs, right? The one important aspect of education, as it is, we are losing these central university spaces which were open. It is under threat for different reasons, right? And constitutional values are questioned time and again. In all this, where do we locate ourselves? As a Dalit woman, how do you expect somebody to navigate the space without the constitutional support system? Another point that I would like to, from personal, now moving to the professional space that I have, why is this topic, right? Strengthening the weak. For me, the word strengthening is an important phrase in the title. How do we strengthen them? One that we are Ambedkar and the committee tried to do was by providing them certain kind of affirmative action, right? That's your legal right, and an organization, an institution will be questioned if you're not meeting that requirement. But strengthening at different levels should happen. I think I forget her name, I'm so sorry, when she was saying our right should be our right. We should not go and beg it every time when we want that right. Why it is important in the constitution for me is because today I can have these conversations, I can have it in my classrooms. So I teach literature. When I take Rohit Vemula's letter as a text to my classroom, when my students are engaging in this conversation, I work in a private institution. I'm not working in a government institution. Why I'm mentioning this is even today, the ratio of people coming from the minority communities in government colleges will still be higher than private colleges. Of course, the primary reason is going to be the fee structure itself, right? Now, I am talking to people who come from the dominant privileged community people. Just like B.R. Ambedkar having this conversation with his committee members, where he has to, and he's the only person who's putting his hand up for certain things, right? And it is a very challenging aspect to even get that. Now, in a class of 70, 80, right, when I take a letter where a student is writing, right, it's a challenge because I stand there as a woman, I stand there as a person from a minority community to have this conversation with the students who are brought up from a different cultural background now. I am not blaming them, but to reach here has taken a long journey, right? When a student says, ma'am, don't you think it was only given for 10 years, right? Don't you think it should have been removed? Don't you think there is a person who's using car, who's using Apple, iPhone, why should they be getting reservation, right? Why should they be receiving affirmative action, right? My first question is, why are young people having this discussion without actually reading the document or without actually reading it, right? I have reached a stage where it is in the initial stages, the question of merit used to bother me as a student because you're also questioning my merit. Very funnily or strangely, students probably do not think that a person from the minority community could be the one actually teaching you this. And at the place where I am, I don't think many actually think I am from the community, right? This whole question of when you talk about it, you become the liberal left, right? You may not be perceived as to be so and so. Of course, there are the same kind of debates about Ambedkar, and is it because I am from the Department of English, right? This is where I would like to bring in the idea of language of merit, right? Because the one thing that constantly comes in, whether it is a person from a minority community, a person from a oppressed religious community, here I am talking about the Dalit Christians, Dalit Muslims, right? I am giving a prefix Dalits because there are debates currently, and it has been happening for a while now, as to how do we look at Dalit Christians, Dalit minorities. Immediately, as soon as we talk about affirmative action, we end up thinking that people who come from minority communities are going to be dumb. And that bothers me as a teacher who takes this discussion to class. Because you are saying, I got where I am because of only affirmative action. And yes, it is. Of course, yes, it is. And I should be with confidence able to say, but you're a human being and I deal with humanities at the end of the day. And it does keep bothering you. Why are you put under question constantly? And your abilities, right? I know that in the legal realm, we talk about how many people get, how many people are able to receive. But when we receive, what happens is what I look at, right? You may not, I know there are a lot of friends of mine who are from the community who are gold medalists. So they don't come to your eyes. And another question parallelly is, are we then saying the language of merit, the discourse of merit, are we then reaching a point of saying anybody from the dominant community is meritorious? Are they not taking management seats in the medical colleges? Are they not, do they not have 8 or 10 doctors already? I'm talking about the medical doctors already in the families. And those 10 or 8 doctors came to your family not because of only their efficiency, also because that access was there many years ago already provided to you. You might be poor, but you had access to enter these universities, right? Language of merit is a constant question even today. Ma'am, they score 30% and they get. I really want to tell them, no, it's not 30% because even constitutionally it's not 30%. Go check your facts, right? I'm sharing these things because that's the world that I am. I think that's not 30% because for everything there is a cutoff. And I know for sure it's not 30%. And to say that somebody who got 90% did not get and somebody who's getting 30% is able to get, itself is a factual incorrectness. And the confidence with which this factual incorrectness come in the classroom, the public debate, the public discourse bothers me much. Because I'm not talking about numbers, right, in my classroom. I'm talking about living human beings who enter the classroom. And for me the question is there a student in this class who belongs to that community who is availing this support? Is that student seated here being crushed because there are students who are making such comments? There have been times when such students have come forward and they gain their strength and talk about it, right? There are some students who go quiet, right? And as somebody who is also part of Equal Opportunity Cell, I do get to see certain data and I see who would have enrolled into certain courses, right? Who may not have entered into certain courses. And I know, okay, in this classroom there are more students, in this classroom there aren't. How do we navigate this conversation, right? And the language of merit is a very difficult thing to navigate, right? After receiving, what then, right? Would just like to talk about Ambedkar. He had to sign a document, right, stating that when he comes back, he is going to serve for so-and-so for 10 long years. And imagine, while reading Waiting for Visa, you also see the fear that this man has when he is living in the Parsi Inn. So one of the chapters in Waiting for Visa, which is like the closest to an autobiography that we have, right, in snippets. One chapter where he talks about trying to find a place to live and how a friend is also not able to provide a space. And I think that's the only book where I see him sharing his personal story and become opening a window to his personal life. Lying to the Parsi Inn people when they believe that he is from so-and-so community, keeping quiet and sitting there, coming back, right? And these human emotions is what for me has been an important aspect when I talk about affirmative action. Alongside the political discourses that we have, right? And we hear about few people talking about it at a time when Chief Justice of Supreme Court standing there, yeah, he made a comment. He made a comment that, okay, ask your God to do something. Fine, you disagree with certain comment, you can actually have a good debate. That is something that is possible for a well-educated group, that we can actually have that conversation. And this docudrama for me, I think one question that you posed is also, was it possible for the docudrama to get the kind of discussions? I think they've done certain interesting things. I'll come to the what we call as the docudrama visual discourse, right, or the visual grammar part of it later. Somebody to throw a chuckle at a practicing higher position person was really disheartening. It was disheartening because whatever they were talking many years ago, they were talking about minority rights, they were talking about Dalit rights, they were not using the same terminology. And how many Dalits have been the Chief Justice, right? That's another question, right? How many people from the Adivasi community? How many women? That itself is a clear picture. We need not even have to do a big scientific research as such. We all talk about merit, right? The language of merit. Do a basic survey, not even a survey, just a Google search would tell how many of them from a specific community have reached that position. Are we then saying that the others are incapable of becoming one? Of course no. Like what Ambedkar says, give us also an equal opportunity. You'll see how far we can run, right? And if we are still living in a condition where after 70 plus decades, we are still having a moment where somebody can easily throw and the next day say no and be unapologetic about the act itself, I think for me the discussion that they were having is still relevant. And we have not reached a point where we can say, let us remove all the support systems that we have given. This is where I also would like to draw our attention to fundamental rights and rights for minorities. We all keep talking about human rights as such. Yes, human rights is important, fundamental rights under the constitution is important, but there are special rights, there are special needs that special people of special needs actually. Whenever a debate about the support systems come in, we talk about only. So there is a selective appropriation of a discourse. Meaning, when we have these discussions in the public space or in classrooms in my context, we selectively choose affirmative action given to SC/STs, right? But we have a long list, and to some extent the list is made, and the list is of, what surprises me constantly is that, is this information not available in the public forum? Of course it is. Of course it is. And how is that we become ignorant to this information? Women have certain support systems. People from the rural background get certain affirmative action. Women get certain affirmative action. People with, within quotes, disability, we also have provisions for them, right? Other backward classes, religious minorities. I teach in a religious minority institution, right? But all of this is pushed away, but I only pick this. My question is, why are we then picking only this? The constant question is why, right? And that bothers me much, because you think that you have one narrative, there is another narrative. It is an echo chamber built. The echo chamber built which says to me, I saw one within quotes, a student from the Brahminical group who has not been able to achieve something. I am sorry you were not able to receive, but what about in a class of 80, I see about 70 people who are from the same community. This is where I think the regularly debated idea of representation comes in. We are not providing or talking about affirmative action, like a card, what is the diversity card? Let me have one woman, a person from the black community, one person from so and so. No, we are not talking about that. We have women's cell to represent our discomfort in menstrual cycle. When we are talking about the strengthening, right, of certain communities, as a woman, my body demands certain things. Pro-life or pro-choice, the one who's bearing it should be able to make. As a farmer is the one who would be able to make. And it's a very simple conversation, but this doesn't reach. People who are talking about big politics, they're not. And even when this whole conversation about menstrual cycle came in, I was working in another organization before joining the current organization, where leave during our menstrual cycle was already available. I'm glad. This is where for me the legal realm and the social realm should come together. Because legally I can provide something, but socially would I be able to avail that? Menstrual leave socially was actually not possible for women to take because of other confinement. Now let's say a woman who is in a traditional family setting, right, where you take leave But in your mind, your domestic space is what is troubling you. You're not actually resting throughout the day. You might probably end up doing other chores that were pending. Your body is not actually resting. That's a social stigma. When all of my friends were going, hey, you see and this is in no way a criticism to the provision that is being provided. I am for it. What I'm saying is, alongside this legal realm, alongside this legally sanctioned provision, can there be a hope that she was saying, right? Like she was very hopeful of things and changes. If there is a child that the woman is supposed to take care of as a primary caregiver in a very conventional, traditional setting, would the woman end up taking that for the child? We cannot say that, it's your fault. There is a systemic problem, right? And other issues again will stop her. So alongside legal realm, for me as a person who's coming from the social realm, for me these two are they merging. For me, an appeal to people who are also in the legal realm is I know that you would be having these conversations, but constantly to keep a check, to keep these conversations and debates running, right? As women, we keep constantly saying here, of course, that was a time when a lot of women were still not able to come. But today is no different, right? Let us say the same discussion were to happen in another space. Women have to do everything possible for evening and come, right? And that extra burden is what we are debating about. And for me, I think as a lecturer, my classroom spaces allow me to engage in this conversation. Coming back to the docudrama, one of the interesting elements is that the casting, right? I don't know if it's a relevant thing to discuss about, but each personality, each character becomes something. This is where the presence in the public realm matters. So I am doing a project to understand how the image of Ambedkar is existing in the public space in Bangalore. I'm doing that in the form of photography now, but once you start looking, you can't stop looking at it, because every nook and corner of Bangalore, you see the statue of Ambedkar in different ways. One constant one that you see is, of course, with the Constitution, but the one near Vidhan Sauda and the one which probably would be in Fraser Town or would be in Vivek Nagar or Ambedkar Nagar will be very different, because historiography or the presence in a city space matters. We are visualizing a character, and I'm also a student of film studies. That is where, for me, an extensive research has gone into the way somebody talks, right? The way somebody sits. All of this talks a lot about also the kind of privileges that we have. It might look like I'm overreading, but I may not is what I want to believe in, because spaces and your body carries memory, right? When Ambedkar is sitting, I usually look at, I've watched this many times, I see frame by frame, and I would invite you to also rewatch, and of course the next few episodes. Next time I would see the grand, he's not made to look like beyond the image of the human, but the way he sits like this, right? That also indicates certain kind of confidence. After working with people with minority communities and also people who are from the privileged caste communities, I see that there is something that's happening with our bodies and our public presence. We hesitate to enter a certain space. We hesitate to occupy space. We might say it's easy, it's accessible. No, it isn't. The access is not only about whether I'm able to afford to get a cab, an auto or bus, right? We might also go to an extent of saying today things are available online. Of course, yes, but the person's way of looks and are you able to be with a certain group, the kind of conversation, the kind of English, the kind of accent that they have, all of this decide whether you have access to that space or not. when you don't have access to that space, inevitably the opportunities are also not going to be available. And in that sense, for me, a very thorough research going into casting characters was interesting aspect, because films matter, because films reach the public space. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people are watching this whole Ambedkar TV serial that is coming. I have not watched the whole. A few that I have watched, if there are fans of it, I'm sorry, they really need to work on the public image that they are building about the person. Because you are creating this whole image which actually is not fitting very well. Okay. But does it mean stop that? No, unfortunately that's the route with which now I see some people are having this conversation. It's the same with, I think, Savitriba Phule and Jyotiba Phule's TV serial is also coming, and this is what they are doing. In the history of the larger film industry itself, we have Gandhi's, of course, the big film that we've watched, and you ask most of them, they would have said yes, we watched. Even in that film, you'll see Ambedkar only when the Pune Pact is being discussed. You don't see him in rest of the narrative. Of course, one could actually say that, okay, this is a film about Gandhi, why do you want? Understandable, fine. But now, in the public realm, where else do I bring this person who's actually been in the shaping of the nation? That is where, for me, the docudrama's attempt, I would say it's an attempt, right, matters. Again, it's not, I'm not saying we should remove this, but this is also accessible only to a certain crowd, right? Why? I'm still surprised that my father was probably interested in this, but there is no surprise because he was part and parcel of these discussions that were happening. But let's say in the same family, my mother, my sister, my siblings, they may not like it. In that sense, this is reaching to us, maybe to a classroom, right? Good. But how do we take it to the next level? I think that is where there's a lot more work in the process of archiving. A lot of things matter. As a person who is involved, I want to archive the entire movement of the public presence of Ambedkar's narratives in Bangalore. I think this whole documentation of his life is also equally important. That's where we see a lot of biographies that are coming, that have come, that are coming, right? And each have its own approaches to share with us. Each have its own limitations as well, right? This is another conversation that I think I wish to share. Now, coming to the question of the religious minorities, right? A very, very important debate for us. Our own preamble says we are secular, and the whole conversation about the word secular has been debated over, and we've had discussions about it too. Now, the debate between personal law and the civil law, then we have Hindu Corpus, which discussion is going to come later. It's a very tricky phase, but it's an important discussion to have, because when the system was talking about hijab and removing hijab, there is this whole idea again where representation matters. People from the community should be part of this conversation to make that change. I, from an outside point of view, might have agreement, disagreement, but this is a much more complex matter is what I feel, right? But personally, I may be for, I am for the constitutional approaches of looking at it because of certain things within the personal law which may not probably accepted by the community also, right? Now comes the question of who can talk for, who should talk for, right? When I feel that, okay, this should not be accepted in so and so community, it is really important to have this debate, to have this conversation with the community, with outside the community. But all onus also is on the community to come forward and share this. I don't know if I'm making this clear. This conversation about even the triple talaq, when it was happening, when I think I was still a student, I was trying to understand these things. To be frank, I am still navigating to understand this whole conversation about the personal law and but when something is wrong, it is wrong. When something need to be amended, it need to be amended. Whether it is in the Hindu community, Christian community, Islamic community, doesn't matter. I think I'm also able to say this because I'm actually a believer of our own rights. I'm not a believer of anything on those lines. Maybe it's still easier for me to say this, but I'm trying to understand what shapes people who are believers, right? Because at the end of his life, Ambedkar still believed in a certain kind of Buddhism, right? He wanted something to anchor. For me, there is something to anchor. But for some people, hope is to something anchor. I look at spirituality on those lines. Here, I don't think they were talking about spirituality. They were talking about the institutionalized religion holding an upper hand over the constitutional questions that we have or debates that we are having. Hindu Code Bill is another, for me, is a narrative that is very, very important, because if we are able to talk about women's inheritance, right? If we are able to discuss about divorce very comfortably, right? Again, it's a legal problem. It has not been easy. It has not been easy. People keep this episode again, right? People keep talking about Ambedkar being the Dalit icon. I feel he was a feminist, right? Who was talking about women's inheritance, women's voice in these aspects. And he was talking about labor rights, which is not again mentioned here, but those are the things, those are the aspects of the individual that matter to us. This episode again is important when we are having the social and educational survey in the state, where we've been, is it right? Should we have? Again, a lot of debates are happening. Why are they having 2015 document coming up now? But what is important is when we are having the survey, the other things that are coming up, right? Of course, you are not forced to reveal or share the details. Legally, you are not bound to. However, is it not a constitutional morality to share? Because once you do, it will be easy to assess even the other, right? In the current debate that's happening in the past few days, that's also something that came to me easily. It's easy for one to say, I will not participate in it, but where is the constitutional morality? I think the debates that were held, I don't know if it's an orchestrated thing because of the docudrama, but I like the way where one should have these debates comfortably. If it did happen the way it is shown, I'll be the happiest. Unlike the way we debate over these things in the current times, where the voices of the people is not heard. People keep banging these things, right? Now, who to talk, who should talk for, who represents anybody, right? Here, a Muslim can represent a Hindu. That whole debate came by when they were talking about minorities. Yes, we all can represent. However, I'm not saying authentically representing, but there will be special needs that I understand through experience, that I understand because I've lived that life, right? Maybe when these two come together, I feel that is where it would be achievable in some form. Otherwise, one voice alone would go. In that sense, I may not be able to. For example, if a friend of mine from the Islamic community wants to say, I want to wear this and go to a classroom, because another person who is coming with other kinds of symbols of another community, be it hair that's grown, which is a symbol of a specific religious community, or wearing a certain clothing, a cassock or something of a certain religious community, if that is permitted, I would also want to wear one. In the idea of resistance, if my friend wants to say that, who am I to question it? From my point of view, I am going to look at it as oppressive, but that is also coming out as a voice of resistance, right? The voice of oppression, voice of resistance is multi-layered, and I think the committee was able to bring in these things. In all this, when I was looking at the way Ambedkar was framing his arguments, bringing or putting together, I think that is where I feel it is not done justice. I do know that his volumes and volumes of work, it was actually, when you watch the documentary, due to the paucity of time, it's like 15 minutes, right? They cannot bring out every detail, and they also have their own restrictions, being a docudrama and things like that. I don't think it was as easy as it was shown in the documentary. I don't think people would have easily accepted, oh yeah, the conversation between Vallabhbhai Patel and Ambedkar, I don't think it happened over a cup of coffee in 5 minutes and, oh yeah, I am a farmer, I was able to understand kind of an approach. That part is where I think, I'm a great fan of Samvidhaan K, but also we are not able to do a lot of things, right? If that is how the conversation could happen, oh my god, I think today we wouldn't be having this discussion at all. Things would have probably changed for good.